On January 21st, 2026, the United States State Department suspended the issuance of the immigrant visas for citizens of 75 countries. The list includes Russia, Kazakhstan, Belarus, Georgia, Armenia, Moldova, Kyrgyzstan, and dozens of other states. The media environment around this decision has been extremely alarming. News outlets compete in dramatic headlines. Commentators draw loud conclusions, and people who have been working toward relocation for years suddenly feel confused and uncertain. At moments like this, it becomes especially important not to react to headlines, but to understand what is actually happening. Today, we'll talk about the facts, what actually has been paused in the American immigration system, and what continues to function normally. Which legal routes to the United States remain open right now? What to do depending on the stage you're currently at? And why abandoning the goal of moving to the United States because of this pause would be a strategic mistake. Hi, I'm Mia, and you're watching the Visa Dan channel, where we make immigration, visas, residence permits, and citizenship clear and achievable. Before discussing strategy, it is important to understand exactly what happened. Many people either do not know the details or understand them in disordered way. The United States Department of State announced the suspension of immigrant visa issuance for citizens of 75 countries. The official source is the State Department website. The wording is clear. The suspension is indefinite and will remain in place until a full review of applicant screening procedures is completed. There is no officially confirmed timeline for when the restriction will be lifted, and claims about a fixed 90-day period do not have official confirmation. The stated justification from the administration focuses on limiting the entry of individuals who may potentially become recipients of government assistance, a concept often referred to as the public charge criterion. Under the revised interpretation, consular offices may evaluate a broader range of factors. These include age, health condition, English language ability, and the applicant's financial stability. Reports also indicate that the evaluation may consider chronic medical conditions and the possible need for long-term medical care. There is also an important context behind this decision. This is already the third wave of restrictions introduced within less than a year. In June 2025, a complete entry ban was introduced for citizens of 12 countries. In December, the list expanded to 38 countries, and the January pause on immigrant visas is the next step within the same tightening immigration policy framework. The measure is already being challenged in the court. Legal experts point out that it may conflict with federal immigration law, which prohibits discrimination against visa applicants based on nationality. It is also notable that the January pause was introduced through State Department directive rather than a presidential executive order, which could make it more vulnerable to legal challenges. The legal dispute is real, and it will likely be resolved in federal courts. Now let's move to the most important point, where many media outlets and online discussions create significant confusion. What exactly is frozen in the United States immigration process, and what continues to operate normally? Only one specific stage has been paused: the issuance of immigrant visas in passports for entry into United States from abroad. This affects the final stage of obtaining a green card through a consulate. That includes family-based immigration categories, employment petitions that reach the consular stage, and the diversity visa lottery. At the same time, the rest of the immigration system continues to function. Petitions continue to be reviewed by U.S. Immigration Services. Consular interviews are still being scheduled. Medical examinations are still taking place. Requests for additional evidence are processed and answered. Adjustments of status inside the United States for applicants already present in the country hasn't been suspended. And most importantly, non-immigrant visas are not affected by the freeze at all. Tourist visas, student visas, and many work visas for professionals and entrepreneurs continue to operate normally. In other words, one point in a log process is paused. The rest of the pathway into the United States is still functioning. Now let's move to the most practical question. What actions make sense right now? The correct strategy depends entirely on where you currently stand in the process. There are three main scenarios. First scenario, you're only beginning to think about moving to United States. Paradoxically, this is actually the most advantageous position at the moment. While many people are focused on uncertainty and waiting, you have time to work on the factors that directly influence immigration outcomes. Building a strong professional profile, preparing documentation, and choosing the correct visa pathway. Many immigration tracks in the United States, especially those designed for professionals with significant achievements, entrepreneurs, or specialists with unique expertise, requires serious preparation. This includes publications, professional recommendations, evidence of recognition in the field, and financial documentation. Building a strong immigration profile can take 1 or 2 years of consistent work. Those who approach the reopening of immigrant visa issuance with a strong portfolio of documents will be in a much stronger position than those who simply waited. At the same time, it may be reasonable to consider entering the United States through a non-immigrant visa. Visas designed for highly qualified professionals, intra-company transfers, or investors are not affected by the suspension. These pathways can allow individuals to live and work legally in the United States while pursuing adjustment of status to a green card from inside the country. This route remains fully operational. So, second scenario, your petition has already been approved and you are currently at the consular stage outside the United States. In this situation, it is important to continue all procedural steps without interruption, respond to requests, complete medical examinations, and prepare for interviews. The immigration process itself has not stopped. Interviews continue to be scheduled, and requests for additional documentation continue to be processed. The visa issuance is paused, but that is the final technical step. By continuing the process, you will be fully prepared once restriction is lifted. At the same time, it may be worth evaluating whether you have a legal basis to enter the United States through a non-immigrant visa in the meantime. If so, adjustment of status from within the country remains possible. And third scenario, you're already in the United States under a legal status. In this case, the situation is generally the most stable. Adjustment of status to a green card inside the country has not been suspended, so if your petition has already been filed, the process continues normally. Travel outside the United States, however, should be evaluated carefully together with an immigration attorney. The risks associated with leaving and re-entering the country are currently higher than usual, and each situation should be assessed individually. It is also important to consider what may happen after the restrictions are eventually lifted. A full return to previous immigration rules is unlikely. It is very possible that the requirements for immigrant visa applicants will become stricter after the review is completed. The most likely changes include higher financial thresholds and stricter medical evaluations. This assumption follows directly from the policy logic already presented by the administration. That is why strengthening your immigration profile now makes strategic sense. Financial documentation, proof of stable income, professional recommendations, and evidence of achievements all become increasingly important. Applicants who approach future requirements well prepared will navigate the system with much greater confidence. And finally, it is important not to lose sight of the bigger picture. The United States remains the largest economy in the world with a gross domestic product of around $28 trillion. It hosts the world's largest concentration of venture capital, technology companies, and professional networks. These fundamental characteristics do not change because of single administrative decision related to immigration policy. Immigration restrictions in the United States have appeared and disappeared many times throughout history. After each tightening period, the system eventually adapted and the flow of skilled professionals and entrepreneurs continued. The reason is simple. The country continues to need ambitious people with expertise, experience, and the willingness to operate in a highly competitive environment. People who interpreted every pause in U.S. immigration policy as signal to abandon their plans often remained where they were. Those who used the pause to prepare entered the market at the right moment, with stronger profiles and complete documentation. The current situation represents turbulence, not a permanent change of direction. The difference between these two concepts is crucial. Visa then, the focus is always on legal pathways and real eligibility. The goal is not to sell promises, but to guide clients toward real results. The process always begins with a detailed evaluation of each situation. Professional background, achievements, current status, long-term goals, and planning horizon. Based on this analysis, the most appropriate immigration strategy for the United States can be identified. If a strong legal basis for a program exists, we explain it clearly. If it does not, we discuss realistic alternatives instead of simply saying what someone wants to hear. Clients are supported throughout the entire process from the initial evaluation to obtaining status. This was Mia, Visa Dan. Subscribe so you don't miss new videos about real opportunities for immigration.